Welcome back to part 4 of our series. Here you see the hat has been covered, and let's start building this thing. So you see the empanadas. You want to make sure that the divot in the hat is facing down and the flat portion of the hat is on top. And you just want to start sewing the empanada onto the top surface of the hat with the bottom side first. And remember when I was talking about the semicircles not really being perfect semicircles? Well, the higher point of the empanada is actually facing away from you, so the narrower portion is towards you. And you just want to sew it along the very edge, catching just the fabric really. Even if you get a little bit of foam in there, it's perfectly fine. But the top portion, the top corner of the empanada is not going to fit perfectly into the middle of the hat. It's going to rest a little bit to the right side, because if you look at a regular adult hat, where the eye is, where the head is sticking out of the hat, the top piece doesn't actually go directly behind it, it goes to the side of it. So that's what we're going to try to mimic here. You just want to make sure you sew it all the way to the very edge and make sure that it stays in place. The most important thing is to make sure that the structure of the hat is good, and that way when you start putting the fabric on, it'll look really nice. Super important to keep in mind as well is that remember the shaved portions of the foam are on the outside. So make sure that the shaved portion of the empanadas are on the outside, not the inside of the hat. Now we're moving on to the head and the tail of the hat. I've already cut out these purple fabric pieces. They're basically the same length and width as the black pieces of fabric, so 4x6s. And this is the tail that I'm sewing right now. You just want to make sure that your purple fabrics are not stretched or pulled in any way. When you have fabric that's been pulled or stretched, it doesn't look good when you put it on the hat. So when you're cutting from the purple fabric, make sure that you have pieces that haven't been tampered with, that they still look very nice and uniform. So as you see here, I'm wrapping it just like I would with the black fabric, and then the bottom piece, which is going to be covered up by the purple fabric when you wrap it around the head, you won't see that portion, so I don't even continue sewing it all the way. I just make sure that it is sewn on securely, and the bottom piece isn't going to be seen anyway, so it's not important to have to cover that up. So the eye of the head, it takes a little bit of finagling with, a little bit of finesse, because you want it to look good. Really, the traditional hats only have the tip of the head covered with the bleaching portion, so I'm trying really hard here to just make sure that it sits just right on top nicely. And then the same thing here, the bottom piece of the eye is not going to be seen. So we just close it off here and then cut off the excess purple fabric. And there you have it, the head and the tail. And now we're going to finish off building the hat and putting the head and tail in place. Now, a really good tip here is that when you sew it on, obviously make sure that it's straight, but when you sew it on, you have to do it with a light-handedness, or else if you pull it too hard, it causes the foam to pinch in, and you don't want that look. It'll make it look like wobbly, or just pulled the wrong way. You want it to look straight, like it was meant to be there, and not warped in a way. So there you have it. There's the front. Now let's start working on the back. The same thing to keep in mind, making sure that it's straight and in place and you're not pulling too hard on the thread. Now I like to have both of them just sticking out a little bit. The head of the hat, it sticks out about an inch, And then the tail, maybe about 3/4 of an inch, because it doesn't really stick out as far as the eye. So that's where I typically sew it on in measurement for a newborn sized hat. So as you can see, this is a time intensive project, and when I go to the Hmong stores, I do ask the shop owners, because typically they're the ones who make the clothes in their shop, and I ask them how come they don't make hats for infants or just little people, and typically the response is there's no real bang for your buck. The amount of time that you put into making these little cute things, people just don't want to pay a big price tag for the amount of time that you put into it. So it totally makes sense as to why they don't produce them more. But for people like us who like to adorn our little girls, it's always nice to be able to have a resource so that we know how to make it if we'd like to. Or if not, I make them, so that's why I'm doing this video. And there you go. This is the finished product, smoothing the inside and rough on the outside, but no worries, that'll be covered up with the purple fabric. And here you can see the profiles. So thanks so much for joining me thus far, and I will see you in part 5 of this video series. Thank you.